Today we're playing Pokemon Anil. I think I pronounced that right because this game was translated from Spanish to English. In this game you play through the Kanto region, but it's not like normal. There is a ton of added story events. You'll be seeing new characters. It's a fan-made game, so it's absolutely gorgeous to look at too. You'll be able to choose your own difficulty modes, but there is also Pokemon available up until Generation 9, which is definitely something you don't see too often. And to spice it up and make this video more fun, I have decided to run through it with only water types, and it is going to be a hardcore Nuzlocke. If you could hit 13 likes, that would be absolutely amazing. And let's try to hit 500,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you want to be part of the first 500k, go ahead and do so. Now let's see if we can surf our way through Pokemon Anil. At the start of the game, you get greeted by Professor Oak, but this time you get to choose between 3 characters, Red, Leaf, and a third character that looks like a farmer that I've never heard of before. Because I was intrigued, I went with her and named her Farmer X. I named my rival that guy because he'll definitely be a pain in the ass. And then you get to pick between Classic Mode, Complete Mode, or Radical Mode. I decided to opt for Complete Mode so that I can use Water-type Pokemon from every generation. And to be honest, Palafin Hero Form is all I'll need. You can then also pick between Normal or Nuzlocke mode. I of course go for the Nuzlocke mode, which won't allow me to revive a Pokemon if it faints, but there are even more modes. You can go for Master level, Normal level, or Easy level, where you can resurrect Pokemon after getting a gym badge. Obviously we're not going to do that, so I pick Master level. We then spawn into Pallet Town and do our first checkup of the world, and I love the art style in this game. It feels so adventurous, yet still very calming. I then head over to Professor Oak's lab. My rival's already here, and we get to pick our first Pokemon. You get to pick between Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, of course, but there's also a Pikachu option if you don't like those 3. I'll be grabbing Alvin the Squirtle and crush our rival's hopes and dreams by tackling his Bulbasaur until it goes unconscious. Before we can leave the lab, Professor Oak has another task for me. There's a third person that's supposed to get a Pokemon today, but he didn't show up, and he's supposed to live in Viridian City, so that's where we'll be heading next to bring him here. In Viridian City, however, I first pick up the Old Rod and check out the houses that have literal Pidgeys sitting on them. It's these little details that really bring the world of Pokemon to life, and it's a big part of why I enjoy playing these fan games so much. The person we're supposed to get, however, is Red, and he doesn't just speak in dots like in every other Pokemon game. He actually has a voice now. And he's not the unrivaled Red that we know today. He's actually a scaredy cat. Because he's lived in Viridian City his whole life and he hasn't ever left, he's really scared to go up the Pallet. We, however, encourage him to go there anyway, but before we follow the guy, I first use my Old Rod to grab an encounter here. Gert the Dewpider, a nice bug water type that's going to be really special defensively bulky. On Route 1, I pick up Holland the Psyduck, and then we head back to Professor Oak's lab to meet up with Red and that guy. Professor Oak then gives us a great task, filling up the Pokedex. We also get the Pokefile, which just like in Radical Red, will be able to heal our Pokemon in between battles. But it only has one use now, and if we go throughout the region, we'll be able to find more slots for it so we can use it more often. Professor Oak then tells us we should go and challenge Brock, so let's head to Viridian City. On the way there, I captured a Choodle that will bite your ankles if you don't watch out. And just before we can enter Viridian Forest, Red stops us because he wants to test out his very new Pokemon. He's only got a Mankey and a Charmander, which my team just washed away without any problems, and he's a little overwhelmed by the defeat. He's, however, not going to stop here and try to head over to Viridian Forest without being attacked by anything. A cool thing in these overpasses to new routes or new areas, there will always be a Pokemart clerk, but also a nurse that will heal your Pokemon, so you don't always have to go back to the nearest town to stock up or heal up. Pewter City has changed quite a bit. There is now an entire construction site here, and just like in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, you can babysit a woman's Slowpoke to get a free reward. Here she only gives you a couple of berries that I don't think I'll be using all that often, and then I head straight to the museum because Brock's not at his gym. We do find him, however, looking at these beautiful sprites of fossils. Pretty sure those are Amaldo and Cradily. As we're talking and admiring the fossils together, Team Rocket walks in all of a sudden and demands to get all of the fossils and valuables in here so they can claim it for themselves and I guess sell it on the black market. But they walked in at the wrong time because we, the best 2 trainers in this town, are here to protect it. Sadly enough, this isn't a double battle. Together with Brock, we just take on one of the grunts on our own while Brock takes care of the other one, and after scaring them off, Brock thanks me and heads back to his gym to await our challenge. But before we went to the gym, I actually found Norman at the top floor of the museum. And this was a reoccurring thing because somewhere near a gym there will always be a Hoenn gym leader which you can challenge for more items and TMs. I guess you could categorize these as mini boss battles. The man had only 3 Pokemon, starting out with a Slackoth and a Skitty that my side destroyed with a workup boosted water gun. His Loudred, however, was a little bit of a pain in the ass. And illegal, because level 12 Loudreds don't exist. Luckily for me, Pepito has the Intimidate ability, so we can lower Loudred's attack, then use 3 Rock Smashes in a row to crush Norman. As a reward, we get the Echoed Voice TM, but also some plates, but not the type plates from Arceus. No, these plates are actually to max out your IVs, so your Pokemon can become really overpowered. So defeating the gym leaders is definitely a must if you want some good Pokemon. We then head to Brock's gym, but he was absolutely washed away. His Dwebble and Bonsly get destroyed by Squirtle's water gun. For Onyx, I swapped out into Pepito, used a couple more water guns, and gained my very first Boulder badge, as well as some extra plates to buff up my Pokemon stats. I then realized that I forgot to get an encounter in Pallets, so I grabbed the Marill there with my rod, but it didn't have huge power, it instead had thick fat, so that doesn't make it that useful. On the route next to Pewter, I grab a Tympole, which I definitely need to keep alive until it evolves so I can get a water ground type, one of the only Pokemon that will help me take down Lieutenant Surge. My Squirtle also evolved into Wartortle, and in the Poké Center next to Mount Moon, I bought a Magikarp because Gyarados is just a given in any water type run. Mount Moon itself now also has pools of water, allowing me to grab a Barboach, another water ground type, and personally, I'm a way bigger fan of a Master Ball eating Mishcash than I am of Seismitoad. Inside of Mount Moon, I also found a guy named Don Prodigio. Once you talk to him, you'll be able to give him one of your Pokemon in your party and he'll randomly offer any Pokemon in return. But if you don't accept his trade, he will move on to another location in the region where you can try again for something new. Since I didn't get a water type, I moved on to not the end of Mount Moon, but kind of the middle part. Because in this game, Mount Moon, just like in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, has an outside where we meet up with Red. He's super scared of Team Rocket and can't believe that Professor Oak sent us on a journey where criminals like these just run loose. He's debating going back home and leave his entire Pokemon journey behind. That's when we slap some sense into him and get him to challenge us. He might have evolved his Charmander into a Charmeleon and added a Hoot to his team, but that doesn't make my Elvin scared. He crushed him once again, making Red realize that he has to become stronger so that he can stand up to people like Team Rocket. And after walking through my Wartortle, I found some Clefairies dancing next to a lake, and I also found an Alpha Nest which kind of works like raid den encounters where a powerful Pokemon will jump out and you'll have a chance of capturing it if you defeat it, but I wasn't interested in a Psychic type. I did, however, evolve my Marill into an Azumarill, which still didn't have huge power. At the end, I also grabbed the Helix Fossil because I didn't think Kabutops was going to be as useful as Omastar in the end. And at the exit of Mount Moon, we see a young archer together with 2 grunts. He even has a ponytail now. The 2 grunts tell him about the trouble we've caused them inside the museum, and Arjun doesn't take this lightly and wants me out of his hair. I mean, I could definitely fit in that ponytail, but let's see if we can beat him up. He starts out with an Impidimp against my Azumarill, and he puts up a decent fight, taking me down to 32 HP with a ton of Draining Kisses and paralyzing me with Thunder Wave before I can take him out. Then he brings in Golbat, and since I'm a Fairy type, I know this thing is going to go for a Poison type move, so I bring in Wisdom to tank a Poison Fang, counter back with a Rock Tomb to lower its speed, but I did get poisoned, so after that I brought in Pepito with the Intimidate, used another Rock Tomb, but I took way too much damage again, so I was forced to swap out into Alvin, who could finally take it down with 2 more Rock Tombs and the final Pokemon Houndour with 2 water guns. Once the battle's over, he mentions that they've collected enough fossils in Mount Moon and that we should stay out of Team Rocket's business if we don't want to get hurt. I then reached the Mega Punch and Mega Kick sister and brother, standing by a campfire, and moved on to the beautiful Cerulean City that now has a fountain and a Lycan Fallen Rock. In Cerulean City itself, I managed to grab a Ducklet, a water flying type, just like Gyarados, but this time it actually learns flying type moves. With this new team member, I headed straight to the Golden Gate Bridge, and here we see that guy bragging about how he's already captured 30 different species of Pokemon. But little does he know that he needs to capture over 1,000 of them. Obviously, he wants to test these Pokemon against me, but he only has 4 of them, which means he's lying. I gave my Barboach the Quick Claw, allowing him to outspeed his Pidgeotto a couple of times and kill with Rock Tombs. For his Ivysaur, I swapped between Gyarados and Pepito because they both have Intimidate and he only attacks with Razor Leaf, which is a physical move, then do some chip damage with Return from Gyarados, then swap into Persephone, and end off the Walking Plant Toad with Aerial Ace. Azumarill then dealt with Kadabra and Raticate by using Aqua Tail, and that's another rival battle out of the way. On the grass next to the Nugget Bridge, I grabbed a Buizel, and as I'm heading up to Bill's house, we find out that there is also a lighthouse next to his house, just like in the anime where Misty is talking with some girl. We interrupt them, and the girl flees, and Misty seems to be very mad at me. In this rage, she challenges me to a gym battle, but we don't have time for that yet. We first head into Bill's house, who's turned into a pink Nidorino, and just like in the regular Fire Red and Leaf Green, we just get the SS and ticket after turning him back, and then we waste no more time because with our water type team, we have to destroy the water type gym leader for the ultimate clash. I just used a couple of workups with Queen to take down Starmie with Bite afterwards, then do some chip damage on Floatzel with Return until I take too much damage and am forced to swap out into Azumarill, who can then take out Floatzel and the last Pokemon Goldeen with Trailblazes. Super cool that Azumarill can learn it, by the way. The speed buffs really help. Flannery was also standing in front of Bill's house, and I know it really wasn't that necessary to beat her because she'll give me a Fire-type TN anyway, which is not going to be usable, but I just wanted to show this hothead that we can easily extinguish her flame with our Water-type team. We did get some extra plates, which is nice, and then evolved Timpole into Palpitoad, but also Choodle into Dreadnought, and then we head to the daycare, where we see a Ditto breeding with a Vaporeon. They knew what they were doing, yet they decided to put it in anyway. Gotta love the Vaporeon fanbase. I then got a useless encounter in Finneon and headed straight to Vermilion City, and the beach here is absolutely gorgeous to walk on. It really adds to this sea city that Vermilion City is, and I was able to grab a Remoraid here, and just under Diglett Cave, I grabbed a Surskit, which might be a bad thing in your eyes because normally Masquerain is bug flying, but in this game they changed around Masquerain to be a bug water type, which means we won't be stuck with the little ski bug. Then we had some relaxing luxury cruise time where we met up with Red and that guy again. We're all baffled to see each other on this amazing cruise, as Red was able to get a boat ticket from winning a raffle in Cerulean City, and that guy is a rich snob, so he was just able to buy a ticket, even bragging about how the Oak family has money and how his grandfather is famous and all. Typical that guy move. I then evolved Dewpider into Araquanid and heard word that Team Rocket is also infiltrating the SSN as we speak. We see a red girl in the Team Rocket outfit walk into a cabin, so while our two rivals are holding off Team Rocket, we can enter just straight after her. She's threatening a scientist woman about documentation for Project M. We don't know what Project M is, but I'm guessing it might stand for Project Microwave. The scientist obviously doesn't want to give it to this girl, and then we find out that it's actually young Ariana. She explains that the boss Giovanni was one of the main investors in this project and that he won't be happy if he doesn't see any results. We then jump in and Ariana of course recognizes us because we've been screwing with her organization, and she decides to take me on with her level 25 Murkrow. My Leviathan doesn't really like that though, so we bounce on its head to take it out. We also do a ton of damage with a bounce on the next Pokemon Arbok, which has now been turned into a poison dark type, before taking too much damage, swap it out into Pepito and finishing it off. The last Pokemon, Whirlipede, was an easy 3-shot with Rock Tomb and Water Guns from Alvin, and with that we've easily defeated Executive Ariana. Ariana doesn't seem too flustered by this defeat, saying that they will take over the world one day, and then they leave and we get to meet up with the captain. He congratulates us for saving the ship and applauds our bravery. He also gives me the woodcutter, not a chainsaw or an axe, nope, the woodcutter. Lieutenant Surge then comes walking in and says the Team Rocket is on this ship and everybody must go into their positions. The captain explains that he was way too late and that we already got rid of them. A little bit disappointed, Surge goes back to his gym. We look through the captain's trash and find some leftovers, an amazing item that will help us keep our Pokemon alive. We do our final preparation, evolving Barboach into Whiscash because this is what we needed to take down Surge. Literally only this. First, we take down Electrode with a magnitude 8. Galvantula is able to hit one single beam, but 3 Rock Tombs take care of the big spider too. He brings out Raichu, and I had no idea this thing had Grass Knot, so I thought Whiscash is going down here, but it only did about half of my health, and I countered back with a magnitude 10, shaking up the entire gym and killing his oversized rodent. The last Pokemon, Magneton, was also an easy one-shot, and if we didn't have Barboach as an encounter, I don't think this would have been as easy. We probably would have lost a ton of team members. So let's wait and see, maybe Erica will finally give us our first death. Before we find that out though, we have to make our way to Rock Tunnel, and on our way, we meet up with Camper AJ and his Sandshrew. And if you've seen the Pokemon anime, you know this is the guy that won 100 battles in a row with his Sandshrew. And even after that, this thing is only level 30 and I managed to one-shot it. Still a cool little reference though. I then run into Lorelei and her Lapras who are hunting Team Rocket grunts. They tell me to be careful on the way to Lavender Town, but we don't need any of that. Instead, I evolve my Ducklet into a Swanna and capture a Krabby as well. Just in front of Rock Tunnel, we run into Red once more. He's once again debating stopping as a Pokemon trainer because he doesn't know how to get the full potential out of his Pokemon. I don't know what's wrong with Red in this game, but this is definitely not how he normally acts. He says he wants one last battle with me so that he can base his decision on the outcome of the battle. Obviously, he's going to lose. He does have a Primeape now, but Wisdom just Zen Headbutts that into the next dimension. He has an Eevee, but hasn't evolved it, so that's a free kill for me too. Gyarados deals with his Noctowl by using Bounce, and Swanna has no problem extinguishing Charmeleon's Tail Flame. Once the battle's over, he tells me that he just has to go back to Viridian City with his head held high because he can't go further with his Pokemon suffering every single defeat like this. Luckily, Lorelei was eavesdropping and tells Red that he can't stop his journey right now. Red also seems to be a super big fan of Lorelei as he recognizes her immediately from the Elite Four. Lorelei goes on to explain that years ago she used to be as insecure as him, but that through dedication and hard work she managed to get through it and become one of the strongest trainers in the Kanto region. This sparks Red's flame on once again, giving him the courage to go on. Rock Tunnel got a little bit of an overhaul, and since I of course forgot to pick up the HM for Flash, it did take me a little while to get through it. No real notable encounters or anything, so I headed straight to Lavender Town and fished in a pond there. And since this is Lavender Town, I picked up my only ghost type, Frillish. I know we just beat up one of our rivals, but it's time to get our hands dirty again in the Pokemon Tower. Here that guy also mentions that we didn't kill his Raticate, he just put him in the box because he wasn't as useful anymore. I prefer to just wreck his Pokemon though, as Alvin takes down Pidgeotto with no problem. Wisdom only just won the matchup against Kadabra because I got 3 magnitudes 5s and a magnitude 6, barely doing any damage to it. It then swaps in Ivysaur, so I bring in my Gyarados, but just as I'm about to hit my bounce, he swaps out into Growlithe, crippling my attack with Intimidate so I can't kill, forcing me to swap into Persephone to take out this little tiny dog. But Swanna is an absolute powerhouse as it's able to take down this Ivysaur with only 2 air slashes, although I did get hit with a Giga Drain leaving me with only 10 HP. I kinda forgot how frail Swanna really was. Once the battle's over, he mentions that he captured a Cubone but wasn't able to find a Marowak. He thinks Team Rocket did something really bad to the Cubone and Marowak, and he will wipe them off this planet once he becomes the strongest trainer. But first we head to Celadon City and find that guy that trades again. This time he wants to trade a Tapu Lele for my Gyarados, and if this was a Tapu Fini I would have done it, but sadly enough, that's not a water type. So we moved on to the building next door where we picked up an Eevee, used a Water Stone on it to get a Vaporeon, and no, I won't be using it like the guys in the daycare are. I also evolved Wartortle into Blastoise and then head straight to Erica, who actually kept the gym design of Heart Gold Soul Silver, not the one from Fire Red and Leaf Green. I start out with Swanna against her Tangrowth, which has Rock Slide by the way, but it only did about half of my HP, and by the time I killed it with 3 air slashes and she wasted a couple of potions, I was healed up a bit by leftovers. She then has a Sudowoodo, not a grass type at all, and I decide to cripple its attack with Feather Dances and then heal up with Roost. Once it's at -6, I decide to swap out into Blastoise, who uses Disparo Certerto, an 80 base power water type move. Don't know what it is. I should really learn some Spanish. But anyway, 2 of those do take down the tree. The last 2 Pokemon, Vileplume and Lilligant, got destroyed by bounces from Gyarados, making this gym badge a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. With a rainbow badge in hand, I went to the game corner and saw an amazing Meowth sign. But Meowth is always a sign of Team Rocket. So after infiltrating their base and taking down their grunts, Palpitoad evolved into Seismitoad. I then went back up to the game corner and saw that Watson was actually here too. I know this is normally not a great matchup, but since we do have 2 water ground types, this was once again as easy as Lieutenant Surge. I was hoping I would get the Volt Switch TM from him, but he gave Wild Charge, so even if we get a Lantern, this is not going to be that useful. Then infiltrate the hideout once again and get to the heart of it. They're talking about finances and that by the end of the year they will have doubled their capital, but then Archer notices me and shouts at me to get out or else. Giovanni, however, dismisses Archer because he wants to deal with the problem himself. Look at him, just sitting there smug with his Persian. He actually applauds me for my courage to have come this far. He explains that he wants to control everything, that Team Rocket isn't just a random organization for evil. Then a Cubone walks in, and this is actually the Cubone of which they killed his mother. Giovanni laughs at it, and we can't just let Cubone stand there and suffer. We have to take revenge for the little guy. So let's beat up the big bad boss. Leading off with his Persian against my Gert. It was able to use Fake Out and hit like 3 bites on me before I eventually took it out with 3 Aqua Cutters after he spammed the Hyper Potion. I then bring in Seismitoad against his Nidoking and avoid a poison jab, which is great. I then use a Jet Punch and a Muddy Water, and for those that don't know what Jet Punch does, it's a 60 base power priority attack, so amazing. For the next Pokemon Kangaskhan, I first went into my Dreadnought and used 2 Aqua Cutters to take it down just below half health, but Bulldozes did too much damage and my speed was lowered. So predicting another Bulldoze, I went into Persephone and took down Kangaskhan with Air Slash. His last Pokemon was Rhydon, and I didn't want to risk it living on Sturdy, so I swapped out into Blastoise, got hit with 2 Rock Slides, left with 6 HP, but was still able to take it down with my Spanish move. Giovanni seems to be taking a liking to me as he decides to let me go, take Cubone with me, and gives me a Sylph Scope so we can go to the Pokemon Tower. All great stuff, but next time he won't be underestimating me anymore. Cubone thanks me for saving him, I beat up the ghost of his mother in return, and go up to the top of Pokemon Tower that's now filled with shrines. Here we talk to Mr. Fuji, and he was just at the Pokemon Tower to leave some flowers for his Pokemon when Team Rocket suddenly kidnapped him. Then a weird samurai guy walks in. His name is Urano. Commander Urano. I have no idea who this guy is, but he might be from the manga, which I haven't read. He was the first ever member of Team Rocket and even shows me his membership card, which shows that he's number 1. If this is like a gym membership, I don't think anybody's signing up to Team Rocket anymore these days. He tells me to get the hell out of here because he has a score to settle with Mr. Fuji. Of course, we're not going to let him touch the old man. That sounded very wrong, but we have to stop this guy. He has a full team of bugs which I just squashed in an instant. And once again, the reason that he was here was for Project M. They really seem to want this microwave. I then had a ton of footage that was just corrupted, so I teleport you a little bit forward in time, meeting up with Agatha on our way to Koga's gym. She wants to know how strong we've really become because Professor Oak is an old acquaintance of her, and she wants to see if he picked the right trainers. Safe to say this battle was pretty easy as Gyarados crunched her Banette, Wisdom squashed Miss Drevis with 2 Aqua Tails, she then brought in a Mega Gengar, and I swap in a cool Tent, which I captured on the way to Koga, by the way. I got super lucky because my second Water Pulse managed to confuse the Gengar, and I can't switch down because of its Shadow Tag ability. I then also get a critical hit with Water Pulse, and Energy Ball leaves me with 1 HP in the end. Big Ghost type is no more, and with that we have proven to Agatha that we're a trainer of high regard. So as a reward, she gives me the Mega Bracelet as well as a Mega Stone for my Blastoise. As you can see, they also added in a new town in between Lavender and Fuchsia City, so you don't have to run through like a billion trainers anymore. A nice little welcomed addition, but we are not going to stay here for very long. Let's head straight to Fuchsia. We do make a quick pit stop at a little market and buy a Kingler right there, which is super cool because Mega Kingler is actually just going to be his Gigantamax form, but he is going to have buffed stats. We found another rock-type gym leader in Fuchsia City. This time it was Roxanne though, and as you know, rock versus water, we eroded everything that she sent out in our path. Getting the Stealth Rock TM, which could be useful, definitely in Blaine's gym. I then headed over to the Safari Zone, and I'm pretty sure this was supposed to be a nature preserve, but there's actual Pokemon trainers here too. We pick up the TM for Serve because there is no HMs in this game, and add some Pokemon to our arsenal. Like Guzma the Golisopod, which is always a welcomed addition, a super strong water bug type that if used correctly can be an absolute bulldozer. In the Safari Zone we also found an engagement ring which we brought back to the owner, and as a reward he gives me the Lens of Truth, not something like Strength. And well, the Lens of Truth is actually something pretty cool, because after entering Koga's gym I found out that you can't get through it without this item. It shows you hidden pathways in the gym because otherwise it's going to be blocked by these boxes. Once you find your way through this maze, you'll eventually reach Koga, but he also has a student, his daughter Janine. And before you battle him, you have to answer 3 questions, and for every question that you get wrong, one of your Pokemon will be poisoned. Luckily, I only got 1 wrong. Janine then shows up, and you get to do a double battle against the both of them. Since this is a poison type gym, I did decide to bring my 2 ground types. Starting out with Gyarados and Whiscash, who now has Earthquake. Since my Gyarados is flying type, this is the perfect combination. I decided to just Earthquake the Dragalge and Drapion in front of me, and since I went for Aqua Tail on Drapion, that thing goes down in the first turn. We don't take too much damage from Dragalge, but Crobat does come in after, meaning that our Earthquake won't really work. I decide to double up on the Crobat with 2 Aqua Tails, leaving it with only a slither of HP, and then the Dragalge uses Sludge Wave to take down its very own Pokemon. Oh yeah, and they also healed up the dead Seahorse with a potion. The last thing on their team was a Mega Beedrill, a super hard hitter, but of course frail as anything. I swap out both of my Pokemon for Tentacruel and Blastoise while they Mega Evolve. They doubled up on my Tentacruel, but they didn't do enough damage to kill, so the next turn I Mega Evolve Blastoise and bring in Seismitoad. They actually managed to get it down into red health in just 1 hit, so the turn after I have to swap it out again for Dreadnought, and I Dark Pulse the Beedrill to take it down finally. Now it's 2 against 1, I do get hit with another Sludge Wave, but Pepito once again hangs on with like 2 HP. I then do a couple more swaps until Gyarados and Whiscash are once again out and finish off Dragalge with Earthquake. Bada bing bada bang, the Soul Badge is ours. And I never really understood why this was called the Soul Badge, but I guess it's because he's linked with his daughter, or maybe they're soulmates. Let's just keep it at that. Upon leaving the gym, Jasmine follows me and gives me some secret tea that we can give to the guards of Saffron City so that we can get in. After hyping up all of the Officer Jennies, I head straight to the fighting dojo and find out that this has become an EV grinding spot. Super handy, so after spending some time here and giving all of my Pokemon the proper EVs, I then left and went to Silphco and met up with that guy who was talking to the receptionist. They explained to me that Team Rocket have come in and taken everybody hostage. Luckily, Bruno from the Elite Four comes along to save the day. At least that's what we think, but he can't take on Team Rocket without doing some meditation, and since we have got no time for this, me and that guy decide to put everything into our own hands and destroy Team Rocket without his help. Normally, if you want to get through Silphco, you just have to find the 1 key and you can just go up to your rival and then do Giovanni. But here you first have to beat up Ariana, who now has a Honchkrow, Arbok, and Scolipede, so basically the same team as before, just evolved. And then she'll give you 1 card key. That's right, 1. You actually need another 1. On a different floor, Archer will be waiting for you. He also has the same team as before, Grimmsnarl, Houndoom, and Crobat. Luckily for me, these 2 were pretty easy to beat, so with those 2 commanders out of the way, we get both of the key cards and head up to our rival fight. Before we take on Giovanni, he obviously wants to show me his strength, and the one that wins here will be able to take down Giovanni. so let's do this. My Mega Blastoise finishes off his Pidgeot with just 2 Surfs. He then has a Venusaur, which is an easy one-shot with Queen's Bounce. Arcanine dies to a single Aqua Tail. Alakazam hits a Shadow Ball, but it doesn't do enough damage, so we crunch it back to also take it out. And that was probably the easiest rival battle since the one we did with Red at the start of the game. We also pick up our free Lapras. That will definitely come in handy as it's pretty damn bulky. Our rival already went up to Giovanni, but he got his hopes and dreams crushed by his Mega Kangaskhan. Giovanni even laughs at him, saying that he didn't even last him half a round. That guy asks Giovanni how he can become as strong as him, but Giovanni says he just doesn't have the talent and that we're way more talented than him. Obviously his big ego can't take this and he leaves crying. While running away, he does shout that he should remember this phase because he will be the future champion and he'll do it on his own terms. Giovanni hadn't noticed me yet and he went back up to the president, but he doesn't have any Pokemon to protect himself with. So obviously the 10-year-old farmer kid has to jump in to save the day. Giovanni's obviously here for the Master Ball, and the president isn't just going to give this to him. And Giovanni's kinda sick of me snooping around, so he's ready to crush me, starting off with his trusty Persian once more. This time I start off with Gyarados, immediately using my Intimidate to kind of cripple the big cat. And I'm able to set up 3 Dragon Dances, but I get tail slapped 3 times in a row. If this was 4, Gyarados would have been dead. So I decide to not set up another Dragon Dance and just kill it with Crunch. I also kill his Nidoking with a risky Aqua Tail, which could have of course missed, which would have been the end of Gyarados. We also one-shot his Mega Kangaskhan with a single Aqua Tail, Nidoqueen, and since I know his Rhyperior has Sturdy, I do swap out into something else so we don't lose our best team member. Seismitoad comes in, tanks a Stone Edge, then counters back with a Surf and a Jet Punch to take down the big bad Rhinoceros. We have ruined this operation for Giovanni, but not all is lost because they managed to steal the plants for the Master Ball so that they can fabricate one themselves. Once that's done, there is only one more thing for Giovanni to do, and that's go and capture the strongest Pokemon there is. So he leaves and the chairman gives me a Master Ball of my own and thanks me for all my efforts. Since we don't know what Giovanni's next step is, we first go and take on Sabrina. And this is the perfect time to show off my Golisopod. She starts off with a Farigiraf. After using a couple of Leech Lives, she eventually decides to keep on healing up and then swap out into Gothitelle, saving her Farigiraf for later. I can then one-shot that with Leech Life, and their next Pokemon is going to be a Sigilif. I do get confused by Confuse Ray, but I use Leech Life and Sucker Punch to take it down, not hitting myself in my confusion in the process. Mega Alakazam might be super strong, but also super frail, so one more Leech Life, one more kill, Farigiraf goes down too, and her last Pokemon is Galarian Slowking, which does a ton of damage with a Sludge Bomb, causing me to swap out, because did I mention that this Golisopod doesn't have the emergency exit ability, it has Damp instead. I then use Seismitoad combined with Araquanid to eventually finish it off with X-Scissor, giving me the Marsh Badge as well as the ability to Surf. Upon walking out of the gym, Red comes up to me and explains that we can take 2 roads to Cinnabar Island, either through the cold Seafoam Islands or go back to Pallet Town to surf from there. Normally I would always go to Pallet, but this time I decided to go through the Seafoam Islands because maybe I'd get some nice water or ice type Pokemon there. On my way there I grabbed a Slowpoke as well as a Carvana, but also a Wailmer. However, after completing a ton of ice puzzles in the Seafoam Islands, tragedy struck. I wasn't paying too much attention and the opposing Frostmoth was using Quiver Dance. I had Alvin out and I didn't think this thing could kill me, but then it used a Blizzard and killed my starter, giving us our very first death of the run, and obviously it has been the Pokemon that I have the most emotional attachment to. Alvin, you'll be missed, buddy. We do make it out of Seafoam Islands without any more casualties and reach Route 18. Since we need a new Mega Pokemon, I decided to evolve my Krabby into Kingler. Definitely not a bad replacement, but another physical attacker is really not what we need. I then go to the Pokemon Lab that's located on Cinnabar Island to revive my Fossil and grab an Omanyte, which I immediately evolve into Omastar, a water rock type that will be great against Blaine's gym, unless he has Solar Beam, then we're screwed. I also evolved my Surskit into a Masquerain, which is great because now it has Quiver Dance, an attack that will completely destroy all my competition. And destroying did it do. We met up with Wallace on the beach, and I set up 6 quiver dances on his first Pokemon Ludicolo, and then straight up walloped the rest of his team, no resistance whatsoever. As a reward, he did give me the Aqua Tail TM, which might come in handy, but I don't think it's all that great. I then head over to the abandoned mansion, which actually looks abandoned now with broken glass everywhere and plants growing out of it. Blaine's standing in front of him, and we ask him for a gym challenge, but he isn't going to give me one unless we help him out. He knows that in this mansion there used to be Pokemon experiments with Team Rocket, and he needs me to retrieve an artifact from there so that we can stop Team Rocket together. Obviously we're going to say yes to this, and the mansion inside hasn't changed too much. However, there is one new event here. Once you reach the end, you can normally just pick up the secret key and enter Blaine's gym, but that's not the case here. Instead, we run into an old scientific laboratory, and Team Rocket is actually searching the place, but there is a pink-haired commander that I've never seen before personally. Her name is Serja, and she has a ton of fairy-type Pokemon. Starting out with a Wigglytuff against Mr. Krabs. I just Mega and kill it with a single Metal Claw, but I do have to say that Mega Kingler looks super menacing. I somehow tank a critical hit Drill Run from the next Pokemon, Galarian Rapidash, and counter back with a Metal Claw again, forcing out Togekiss, so we finally swap out into Lapras. And she immediately shows what a great asset she is, killing the Togekiss with only 2 Ice Beams while tanking 2 moves in a row too. Her last Pokemon is a Madebull. I was actually thinking this was an actual Mega Mawile, but it didn't Mega Evolve, so I'm guessing this is just an evolution to it. Anyway, I just swapped out into Seismitoad, used Surf 3 times in a row, and that was that. After the battle, she acts a bit weird, saying she'll never be the most beautiful commander in Team Rocket, but then she gets really happy when her grunts find the Psycho Radar, a device that is able to find some of the strongest Psychic-type Pokemon. With this device in their possession, they leave, and I also leave the mansion and explain everything that happened to Blaine. He explains to me that they're probably going to use it to find a legendary Pokemon Mewtwo, which was artificially created here, but its psychic powers set the mansion on fire, burning it down. He says that there's a lot to think about, but before we can act on this, we first have to have our gym battle. The gym remains the same, just doing some quizzes, eventually reaching him as he starts out with a drought-setting Torkoal. I immediately counter it by using Rain Dance with Seismitoad, and as the Torkoal is charging up its Solar Beam, I swap out into Gyarados and use Aqua Tail to take down the turtle. I two-shot his Turtonator no problem, take down Mega Houndoom the same way. His Sunflora is also a grass fire type, but that goes down by a bounce. His Typhlosion, on the other hand, is something really scary because it was able to set up a drought once again and use Eruption to almost one-shot Seismitoad. I was able to get off a Rain Dance and swap out into Slowbro, who could finish this battle with 2 more Surfs. He gives me the Heat Badge and tells me that Bill is waiting outside of his gym to tell me something. So we go out the door and talk to the man. He knows everything about Mewtwo and the burned mansion and is willing to help us out. But he's afraid that Giovanni has already got everything set in motion for his big plan. So he takes me back to his house in Cerulean City. He's also notified our friends so that we can do one big meeting. Our 2 rivals are bickering once again, but there is no time for this. Professor Oak is currently running late, but once he enters, he says that he had some urgent things to take care of. He does also mention that he's super proud of us, but that's not something that's going to help us in this battle now, is it? We go over the entire story of how Mewtwo was created, and that we can't let Giovanni use his Master Ball to capture this strong creature. We can't even imagine what the devil himself would do with this kind of power. Bill's been researching the Cerulean Cave for a couple of months by now, and says that there have been psychic terrains appearing out of nowhere. So our best bet is to go there together and see if Team Rocket's there, and if they're there, we're going to be taking them on. I do have to say that I really like Cerulean Cave in this game. It's so beautifully lit up with all of the crystals that it really feels special compared to the one in actual Fire Red and Leaf Green. Anyway, eventually we run into Archer and Ariana. They have their Houndoom and Vileplume out against our rival, but he's just lost the battle again. making him feel even more useless than before when he lost to Giovanni. After Ariana and Archer make fun of him, Red enters the scene, but that guy says that he has to stay away. He says that he has to do it all on his own, otherwise how will he ever be able to participate in the Pokemon League and win it? But Red says that he doesn't have to prove anything to anyone and hugs him. Everybody knows that he's become strong, so let's team up together to take on these two goons. As my friends keep them busy, I head further into the cave and run into Surya with her fairy types again. This time it was a double battle with an executive, but really not much changed since our last one. So we beat her up without any casualties, but later on we run into a platoon of Team Rocket grunts, and they're ready to crush me with their combined power. But then we finally get some backup from an actual good trainer. Lance, the Dragon Master and current champion, is here and destroys the entire fleet with just a single attack of his Dragonite. He might have just killed 10 guys, but he's still pretty cool. Instead of going for Giovanni himself, he decides to let me go after Giovanni so he can hold off any other grunts that come my way. And eventually, we reach the end of Cerulean Cave, where we run into the big bad boss. He says that he's been waiting for this moment, but before we continue our dance, he introduces me to his nightmare, Mewtwo. He seems to have sustained an injury while he was escaping from the lab, hence why he's hiding out in Cerulean Cave. He isn't going to capture Mewtwo yet though. First he takes off his jacket and shows me his buff arms and challenges me to a battle right there and then. I once again lead off with my Gyarados against this Persian as he U-turns out into Nidoking turn 1. I decide to just set up one Dragon Dance and kill it with Aqua Tail before Kangaskhan comes in, and as you all know, it's going to be a Mega again. I swap in Whiscash but get body slammed and put into red health immediately, so I swap back out into Gyarados. Crippling the Kangaskhan's attack is crucial here. After doing so, I do get Thunder Punch, but because of the berry that I put on, the power gets weakened, and I'm able to hit an Aqua Tail. Then I swap in Golisopod, but he doesn't take a Thunder Punch too well either. I go into Kingler instead, and he can definitely survive another one, but I did get paralyzed, so if I get paralyzed now, this battle is probably over. So I Mega Evolve, use Crabhammer, kill the Kangaskhan, but almost my entire team is fully dead. I bring in Slowbro on the next Pokemon Nidoqueen, but I misclick and go for Calm Mind, causing the Nidoqueen to bring me down to 13 HP. I bring in Lapras, finish off Nidoqueen with Hydro Pump, and I also try to take down Rhyperior with Surf, but it doesn't do enough because of the Sturdy, and Lapras goes down to a Hammer Arm, giving me my second death of the run. I take out Rhyperior with Liquidation from Rhyperior, he brings in Tyranitar, and I thought I was going to go down to a Rock-type move, but it went for Fire Punch. So Golisopod can win this matchup by spamming Leech Life, and Persian goes down the same way. He doesn't really know what to do after losing and kind of just stands there sadly. But then we get entangled by an Ariado's web, and a Rocket Grunt comes in and says, "I hope I made it on time, boss." Giovanni congratulates him and asks for his name, which is Proton. That's right, we're looking at a young executive right here. He sends Proton out, and since we are now tangled up and can't move, he throws his Master Ball at Mewtwo. Then he says that he has to get rid of me, even if this is the worst thing he'll ever do in his life. He says this is going to haunt him for the rest of his life as Mewtwo is preparing his attack, and just as he's about to fire, our guy's Pidgeot cuts me loose and helps me out. He apologizes for waiting so long and is ready to help us out with this final battle. He knows we can take down Giovanni together if we just put our power in each other's hands. But Giovanni isn't done here. He gives Mewtwo a special suit, making him Armored Mewtwo even stronger than normal. And then we get to fight the both of them. While their animation might be a bit weird, this is a super epic fight. And I didn't even lose a single Pokemon because Giovanni just kept on taking out my rival's Pokemon. So with a ton of battering at it with Aqua Tails, Earthquakes, and just anything I could throw at him, we eventually emerge victorious. The game then says that this match does not count towards the Nuzlocke challenge and revives my Lapras, but don't worry, it's dead. We're not playing by these little baby rules. Mewtwo then breaks his Master Ball and escapes back into the wild, but I wouldn't want to be Giovanni's Pokemon either, to be honest. Giovanni then says that he's going to disband Team Rocket because he lost he's not worthy to lead anything or anyone. He's turning himself in, Lance and Red show up as well, and he takes him away never to be seen again. Red says that he's sorry for not helping in this fight, but he was holding off Team Rocket. We say that it's obviously fine because he's done his best, and head back to Viridian City to get our final gym badge. But Giovanni's in jail. Who's going to be the final gym leader? Well, before we enter, I first grab a Chinchou, giving me some much needed coverage. Then upon entering the gym, we see that it's been turned into some kind of ninja hideout full of spider webs and these old people that have bug Pokemon? Bug Pokemon. Is this gym leader going to be Bugsy or maybe Kurt? Well, upon entering the room of the leader, we see that it's neither. It's Urano, the oldest Team Rocket member. He's going to be our final obstacle and won't associate with Team Rocket anymore since they were disbanded, and he respects Giovanni's decision. He is, however, still a gym leader and ready to give me a challenge. He leads off with a Scyther, which I just two-shot with Persephone's Air Slash. He then has a Kabutops, a rock water type. Don't really know why he has this, but it would have been cool if they turned it into a bug type. I swap in Vaporeon for its very first battle and take it down with Surfs and Hydro Pumps, combined with the Rocky Helmet damage. I'm also pretty sure this thing was choice banned because it kept on using Ice Spinner on me. His next Pokemon, Yanmega, is up against my Tentacruel. Despite being very bulky, my Tentacruel doesn't eat hits too well, and I'm forced to swap into Almastar after taking 2 Air Slashes. I went for Ancient Power but wasn't expecting the Giga Drain to come my way, causing me to lose my 3rd ever Pokemon. Not a big loss, but Lord Helix is always something that people are sad to see dying. Anyway, a Dragon Dance boosted bounce from Gyarados then kills Yanmega, as well as his last 2 Pokemon Heracross and Mega Pinsir. We get our Sylph badge, and he also mentions that he's going to retire from being a gym leader and just live a quiet life with his family. I don't really know if he deserves that after being in Team Rocket for so long, but hey, that's not my problem. We try to go to Victory Road, but first we run into Ariana and Archer again. They mention that they're going to try and start up Team Rocket again in the Johto region, and that we shouldn't try to stop them, which we're not going to do, and then they leave. Me and my rival then intend to get to the Elite Four until one of us becomes the champion. So we leave for our final obstacle. And there, we finally run into the Finizen that I've been wanting since the start of the video. And the cool thing here is, once I evolve it, it actually turns into its hero form, but it now has the Defeatist ability, which means that once it's at half health, he will be useless. Still, I'm going to be using this guy for our last few battles. Victory Road has changed quite a bit. You have to go through the Johto part, but also a new snowy part, and the old Kanto Victory Road just isn't anywhere to be seen. It is pretty cool to see all of the Mount Silver stuff in this game too though. I also ran into an Artibax which just looks so good. It's my favorite middle evolution of all time, so I wish I could use it. We then reach the end of the Victory Road, but on the bridge we see Red, and he's totally staggered by the Pokemon League as it looms before us on this incredible ice peak. He asks me how I'm feeling, insecure, happy, ready to take on the world, but he can't stop thinking about all the people that we've met, all of the trainers that we've faced, and how they all love Pokemon so very much. He wants to show his love for Pokemon one last time against me before we face our hardest challenge. Bring it on, Red. His Primeape died and turned into an Annihilape. I missed my first Hurricane with Swanna and live on 1 HP after a Rock Slide. Then I try to take it out with another Hurricane because I don't really need Swanna anymore, but he swaps out into Noctowl, giving me the opportunity to swap into Gyarados and Aqua Tail it to force out Annihilape again, use another bounce, and take this thing down too. He brings out his Mega Charizard Y, setting up the sun, tanking an Aqua Tail because of it, and doing a ton of damage with Flamethrower. I know another one's going to kill me, so I swap in Tentacool, but he swaps out into Snorlax himself. I go into All Might and used Acrobatics, but that barely does anything, and I get Body Slammed twice. I then swap in Mega Kingler, use my Brick Break to take down the big fatty. He brings in his Mega Charizard and heals it up with a full restore, but a Crab Hammer is enough to one-shot it this time. He brings in Vaporeon and uses Acid Armor, so I go into Masquerain, go for Energy Ball 2 times, and the furry dog is no more. His last Pokemon is Scizor, but we have the perfect counter in Tentacruel. And with a couple more serves, we finally defeat Red without losing a single mon. He definitely put up a great fight as a last battle and wishes me some luck in my last battles. He also says that he's going to continue traveling to a distant land where he'll meet more trainers in a search to become even stronger himself. And with that, Red leaves. Before we enter the Pokemon League, I do want to mention there is a little town in front of it that's super cool, but there's really not too much to do there except for these beautiful Voltorb lamps. I also evolve Chinchou into Lantern and make my team. I decide to go in with Whiscash as my electric type coverage, Lantern because it's just amazing, just like Gyarados, and Palafin. I also brought Masquerain, which was a weird choice just because it has Quiver Dance, and lastly my Mega Kingler. With this amazingly crafted team and Masquerain, I went up to Lorelei and made sure she knew water will always beat ice. She led off with an Aurora, who got hit with a Hydro Pump from Angie, but then immediately swapped out into Jinx. I then went into All Might to try and take down this Jinx, but this was the worst move ever. I got hit with 2 Blizzards, and my Liquidation wasn't working because of its ability. I then used Acrobatics, but I was already below half health, so it didn't even kill. I then decided to use another Acrobatics and it hit me with a Psychic, leaving me with only 3 HP. What is it with my Pokemon and living between the 1 and 5 HP range? I then do take it down with Acrobatics, and luckily Hail has been changed to Snow, otherwise we would have been dead. We then have the perfect counter for her Mega Lapras, our Discharging Lantern, Aurora's goes down to Hydro Pump as well, Mamoswine comes in and I swap out into Gyarados, predicting the Earthquake. I kill it with Aqua Tail and the final Pokemon is Weavile. An Aqua Tail and a Crunch later and we have won against Lorelei. But Gyarados did almost fall to a Night Slash and an Ice Punch. Onto our meditating god Bruno. Going up against the Steelix and missing my Hydro Pump, getting hit by an Earthquake and leaving me with 3 HP was probably the worst play I made this entire game. I quickly swapped out into Gyarados however and set up a Dragon Dance, then got hit with a Thunder Fang and almost died again. I then took out Steelix with Aqua Tail and killed the rest of his entire team with Bounce, healing up every turn with the Shell Bell. Onto Agatha. Let's see if she has become any better since last time we battled. She starts out with a Crobat against All Might. I use a Liquidation and then use Flip Turn to get out of there. I use the Dragon Dance 3 times with the Queen on the Crobat, proceed to take it out with Crunch just like the next Pokemon Golurk. Gengar is no match either, Chandelure and Miss Magius all fall to Crunches. Onto Lance, and he's way harder than the other 3, starting out with a Haxorus. I do take it down with an Ice Punch and Jet Punch from All Might because it wasted its turn going for Dragon Dance. He brings in Mega Ampharos and I Flip Turn out into Whiscash to predict the Thunderbolt and counter back with Earthquake. With Ampharos down, he brings in Kingdra and crits me with a Hydro Pump. I am able to hit an Earthquake as well. I then bring in Lantern, who is able to tank his hits like it's nothing and counter back with Dazzling Gleam to take it down, but can we just say that Dragon Pulse has been changed to Dragon Pulse? Gotta love great translations. He brings in Dragonite, and I think this thing has Earthquake, so I go into Gyarados. The Intimidate is going to help me anyway, and I was right. I take it down with a single Ice Punch from All Might, and his last Pokemon is going to be a Hydreigon. With a double Ice Punch, Lance is no more, and he then says that we would normally beat a champion if there wasn't already a trainer that beat him. Obviously, that's going to be our friend, that guy. Before entering the teleport path, the other Elite Four members gather around because they don't want to miss this amazing battle. We then finally enter the champions room. The cup is standing right there behind our friend, but we need to wait for one last spectator. Professor Oak, our mentor, is here to witness our final battle. We both have to show him that we're the best, so we're not going to hold back in this final battle. Let's do this. Queen versus his Pidgeot. We use 4 Dragon Dances in a row, and then kill with Aqua Tail. We bounce on his Flame Orbing Heracross. Swap out into Ski Bug on his Rhyperior, which was the worst thing that could have happened, and I shouldn't even have taken this thing into the Elite Four to be honest, but it's now dead, giving us our 4th death of the run. Whiscash then takes it down with a couple of Aqua Tails, which is honestly what we should have went into in the first place. He then brings out his Mega Venusaur, which absolutely looks great. And even its animation looks good to be honest. I get Giga Drain because I don't want to take a Giga Drain on anything else. Another death. 5 on the board. I swap in Gyarados, go for the bounce, but it doesn't kill, and 2 Sludge Bombs finally finish off our Leviathan. the one that's been carrying us through everything, is dead. I bring in All Might, our new powerhouse, and use Ice Punch to take this stupid plant down. I kill his Alakazam with 2 Jet Punches, and his last Pokemon Arcanine gets taken out by a flip turn from All Might combined with a flip turn of my Mega Kingler, and that is our rival defeated, making us champion of Pokemon Anil as a hardcore water-type Nuzlocke. This was so much fun for me to play, a really refreshing take on the Kanto region, and I love that you can pick between 3 characters at the start. Not only that, the added story elements really made this game feel even more alive than Radical Red, but that doesn't mean it's more challenging. I do also like that there's Generation 9 Pokemon and new Mega Evolutions, so personally I would give this game an 8.5 out of 10. There is also a Johto region, so if you want me to cover that with maybe only Generation 9 Pokemon, let me know in the comments down below and I might do it. But for now, we're going to end off by thanking everybody from our members and Patreon supporters. If you want to help me out yourself, it's always appreciated but not needed. And as always people, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. I'm zwiggojr, and I'll see you guys next time.